Hi guys, this is Melgeek's first gaming mouse release, the HORUS. I don't really know what I was expecting from Melgeek's first mouse, since when I think of their keyboards, they are usually really well performing but are lacking in the typing feel and sound categories. The mouse is featuring a really nice aesthetic resembling some type of a sports car with the front part here, and the base is open, revealing a nice detail with the underside of the PCB. The black unit sports black PTFE skates which feel a bit slow compared to the usual stock skates on other mice, and I feel like they should have just used the white ones here as well that are found on the white version. However, they do have the anti-collapse layer which is good for skate performance and longevity. On the bottom we find a single button which acts as a power on and off switch, as well as a DPI toggle between your DPI presets. From the moment you grab this thing, you notice it is actually built really well. There seems to be no flexing or creaking on the shell, and it's overall a very sturdy mouse. The main buttons, however, seem to have a very large amount of sideways wobbling when bottomed out, especially my right button. It just feels a bit loose and it is somewhat noticeable while in game. I hope this is only a thing on these first batch units and they have managed to iron out this issue on the consumer batches. The weight of this mouse comes right around the advertised 49 grams on my scale, which I think is nice for a mouse this size. The weight distribution, however, for me feels a bit front heavy for some reason. I also tested it with balancing the mouse on a pen and it seems to be the case there as well. Usually I'm not very picky about the weight distribution, but something just feels a bit off here. You might not feel it as much as I do, especially if you have longer fingers than I have. One of the things I absolutely love about this mouse is the coating. It is a very grippy, slightly rubberized matte coating, and it is very similar to the coating you find on the HeatScan Hyperlight, among others. A really nice choice of coating here, big points for that. The shape is on the larger side of things. It's not as long as the Viper V3 Pro, for example, but it feels much fuller in your hand. The closest resemblance is probably the Vaxi XE. The hump is quite centered and round, and the backside has that slight flatness which shifts the main contact point below your knuckles. It tapers slightly from the back to the center and then remains quite straight without any major outwards flare. The sides are somewhat rounded, so they feel very comfortable to use, at least for me. I like this shape a lot and I think it's quite a safe mid to large shape overall. Now for the main switches, these review units came with Omron opticals, but the retail units have some new TTC opticals, it seems, since Omron opticals are apparently really hard to get nowadays. So I can't honestly say how good the actual clicks feel on the units people will get. On the review unit, the switch implementation, if we disregard the side wobble, is really nice. It is pretty much the usual Omron optical feel, nicely light crisp actuation with a very minimal pre-troll and a slightly bouncy post-travel to make spam clicking feel very nice. The scroll wheel encoder is something I haven't seen before. It's a TTC green encoder. It honestly feels really nice to scroll with it, and the notches are just right for Apex. It's on the lighter side of things, so some people might not like that, but I really do like this encoder. It's very satisfying to use. Side buttons feel nice, no bad things to say about them. They don't go inside the shell too much. They are just right. The size is very good and the positioning seems to be very good as well. For the technical specs, they have used the Pixar 3950 sensor with the new Nordic 54L15 MCU, which is pretty good for battery life. On the driver, you have the option for the 20k FPS performance mode, which from my testing seems to nuke the polling stability completely. With it on, every polling rate from 1k to 8k just shows very weird behavior and makes determining motion latency quite impossible. With it set to off, the stability was improved, especially with 4K and 8K, but 1K and 2K was still quite bad. The only setup that gave consistent results was with 4K polling and the competitive mode off, and with that the result was very nice, minus 0.9 milliseconds from my wired control unit. For click latency, the results were pretty nice all across the board. 0.38 milliseconds with 8K, 0.44 milliseconds with 4K, 0.58 with 2K, and 0.8 86 with 1K polling on average. However, with 2K and 1K, the variance was huge, and sometimes I got around 0.3 milliseconds and then it jumped to around 1 milliseconds for some time. With 8K and 4K, the results were really stable and there were zero outliers in the dataset. So overall, at this current state, I would really suggest running the mouse only with 4K polling and the 20K FPS mode set to off for the best stability if you care about that. It has really nice motion latency, a very competitive click latency as well. You don't need to worry about motion sync settings or debounce times here, since the driver does not have those at all, which for this mouse is a good thing. So in conclusion, what do I think about Melgeek's first mouse release? Well, I think it's a good mouse with some minor issues here and there that should be possible to iron out relatively easily. The main mouse button wobble is something I really hope no one gets on their unit, and the polling stability issues should be fixable with some firmware updates. The skates on the black version should be switched to the same as on the white version, but the price of this is $119, which is okayish. Currently they are running a discount and you can save 15% with the code HORUS from your order, which lowers the price pretty nicely. But yeah, that is all for this one. Thanks for watching and see you on the next one. Goodbye.